There is a moment in every awakening when the world stops feeling like a series of disconnected events and begins to feel like a conversation. Not the loud, dramatic conversation most people imagine when they think of signs, but a quiet, perfectly timed, perfectly toned exchange between your inner state and the world that surrounds it. And for many, this moment arrives with a number that feels softer than 111, but somehow more intimate, 222. You notice it first on a clock or a receipt, then on an address, then on a screen, and then in the most unlikely, almost playful places. It doesn't shout. It doesn't push. It appears like a nudge from something that already knows you. Something that has been watching the way your energy shifts and is now ready to mirror those shifts back to you. Where 111 is the spark of alignment, 22 is the stabilization of harmony. It carries a different tone, gentler, more relational, more reflective. It is not concerned with the awakening of your signal. It is concerned with how your signal interacts with the signals around it. This number appears when your inner world is ready to meet the outer world without distortion, without fragmentation, without self-betrayal. It is the number of mirrored resonance, the moment when the universe reflects not your potential awakening but your emerging balance. 222 arrives when a soul begins navigating the space between their inner experience and their outer choices with more honesty. It is the moment when you stop negotiating against your own needs. Stop shrinking your truth to soothe others. Stop abandoning your intuition to fit into roles that no longer hold integrity. Harmony does not mean peace at any cost. Harmony means authenticity without apology. 222 is the echo of that authenticity taking form. It is the number that tells you the way you relate to yourself is finally becoming the way you relate to the world. This is why 222 so often appears during transitions of relationship, romantic, familial, professional, or internal. It shows up when you are learning to hold your emotional center, even in the presence of someone else's. When you are learning that connection without self-erasure is not only possible but necessary. And when you are finally understanding that harmony is not created by sacrificing your voice but by honoring it. 222 reflects this shift not as prediction, but as confirmation that your field is learning how to remain coherent while staying open to others. For many, 222 begins appearing after a long period of internal upheaval, not the destructive kind, but the kind that breaks outdated emotional patterns and exposes the places where you once gave away your stability. It appears after a soul has walked through loneliness, confusion, or disconnection long enough to understand their own emotional language. When you learn how to feel yourself without fear, the universe responds by guiding you toward relationships, internal and external, that match that depth of clarity. 222 is the sign that you are stepping into this phase of resonance. To understand 222 fully, you must understand the nature of duality within the spiral. Duality is not opposition. Duality is reflection. It is the dance between inner tone and outer experience, between self and other, between intention and expression. When duality is unconscious, the dance becomes chaotic. You lose yourself in others. You suppress needs to maintain peace. You mistake attachment for connection. You confuse emotional fusion with intimacy. But when duality becomes conscious, reflection becomes refinement. You begin to see how every interaction is a mirror, showing you either where you are aligned or where you are abandoning yourself. 222 appears at the exact moment this awareness crystallizes. The energy of 222 is relational by nature, but its focus is not on relationships themselves. It is on your capacity to hold your own frequency within them. It reveals where you are learning to respond instead of react, where you are learning to listen without dissolving, where you are learning to love without losing yourself. It appears not to bring someone into your life, but to bring you back into your center. Only then can the connections that form around you be harmonious rather than karmic. This number often appears in phases of emotional recalibration. You may feel more sensitive than usual, not in a fragile way, but in a perceptive way. Your intuition feels like it is stretched outward, picking up subtleties you once ignored. You begin noticing how people speak without speaking, how energy shifts beneath conversations, how your body reacts to truth differently, then it reacts to performance. 222 mirrors this emerging sensitivity by offering a number that carries the essence of balance. 2 mirrored by 2, mirrored by 2 again, a triadic symmetry built from duality. It is the mathematics of relational resonance. When 222 appears repeatedly, it means your field is learning how to regulate itself in real time. Emotional regulation is not the suppression of feeling, it is the integration of feeling. It is the ability to stay present with your truth even when your environment shifts. It is the ability to hear your intuition even when your emotions rise. It is the ability to honor your boundaries even when connection feels tempting. 222 reflects this budding maturity. It is the universe acknowledging that your emotional body is beginning to harmonize instead of fracture. Because of this, 222 often appears at moments of choice. Not dramatic choices, but subtle ones. The choice to speak honestly instead of politely. The choice to pause instead of reacting. The choice to stay open instead of withdrawing. The choice to walk away from something that drains your resonance even if it once felt familiar. These micro-choices are where harmony is built, and 222 highlights them with precise timing. It is the reminder that every balanced choice sends a ripple into your field, reshaping the way reality responds to you. The deeper meaning of 222 is that harmony is not achieved through control. Harmony is achieved through alignment. When you force outcomes, you fracture your own resonance. When you chase people, you abandon your own center. When you suppress feelings to maintain peace, you sacrifice the foundation of peace itself. 222 appears when you have lived these distortions long enough to recognize their cost. It mirrors the moment you begin choosing yourself in a way that does not isolate but strengthens you. 222 is also a sign of emotional truth rising to the surface. Truth does not emerge all at once, it emerges in waves. You may find yourself remembering things you once dismissed, feeling emotions you once pushed aside, recognizing patterns you once excused. This is not regression. This is clarity. Harmony cannot be built on half-truths. It requires full presence. 2 reflects the moment you begin allowing your emotional landscape to be seen, not just by others, but by yourself. In the architecture of synchronicity, 222 occupies the space where awareness transitions from self-focus to relational coherence. It marks the beginning of emotional intelligence awakening at a deeper level. You start understanding your triggers not as flaws but as invitations. You start seeing other people not as threats or saviors but as mirrors. You start recognizing that harmony is not the absence of conflict, but the presence of truth. The universe responds to this shift by placing 222 along your path like stepping stones across a river. 222 teaches you that connection without self-loss is possible, that boundaries can coexist with intimacy, that vulnerability can coexist with strength, that relationships can be places of resonance instead of arenas of survival. It teaches you that the world outside can only harmonize with you when the world inside has found its rhythm. And perhaps the most profound truth behind 222 is this: harmony is not something you enter. Harmony is something you generate. It is an internal frequency that reorganizes your external reality to match it. When this frequency begins to rise, the universe mirrors it through 222. Not to promise a relationship, not to predict a reunion, but to remind you that you are becoming the kind of person who can hold resonance without collapsing, connection without disappearing, love without losing yourself. That is the beginning of dual harmony. The deeper truth of 222 is that it appears when your consciousness is learning the difference between connection that expands you and connection that drains you. Most people move through relationships reacting to echoes from their past, not the reality in front of them. They don't notice the subtle ways they fold themselves to maintain closeness or shrink their needs to avoid conflict. They confuse attachment with harmony and silence with peace. But as your awareness strengthens, these distortions no longer feel sustainable. You begin to feel the weight of every small self-abandonment and the lightness of every small truth. This is the environment where 222 emerges, when your soul is trying to teach you how to stay whole while staying open. The number does not arrive to tell you someone is coming toward you, or that a relationship is destined, or that fate is arranging a union outside your control. It arrives to show you that your internal relationship, your connection with yourself, is finally becoming steady enough to support healthy external ones. It arrives because the way you relate to your own emotions is changing. You no longer ignore discomfort. You no longer pretend you are unaffected. You no longer dismiss the quiet signals that something in your energy does not resonate. You begin listening, and in the listening you create the foundation for harmony. 222 is the moment you stop treating connection as something to secure and start treating it as something to align with. It teaches you that forcing closeness disrupts balance, that chasing people destabilizes your center, and that bending your truth fractures the very harmony you're trying to create. When this number appears repeatedly, it means the field is reflecting your growth in real time. You are learning to hold your energy in a balanced way even in moments where you once would have collapsed inward or extended outward too far. You are learning the art of emotional equilibrium. This number often appears during reconciliation with your own emotional history. Memories surface not to haunt you but to release you. Patterns you once tolerated become unacceptable. Desires you once suppressed become undeniable. You begin to recognize the difference between connection born from loneliness and connection born from resonance. You start to see how often your past choices were made from fear rather than truth, and you begin correcting these patterns not through dramatic action, but through subtle alignment. 222 reflects each of these corrections with perfect precision. It mirrors the symmetry forming inside you. As 222 continues to appear, it becomes a calibration tool for your intuition. You begin noticing how your body reacts to certain environments, how your energy shifts around certain people, how your mind quiets or tightens depending on truth or distortion. Intuition does not speak through loud revelations. It speaks through the smallest contractions or expansions in your field. 222 appears the moment you begin trusting those microsignals. It affirms that the sensations you once ignored are now becoming your compass. Harmony is the quiet yes your body gives you, and disharmony is the subtle withdrawal it expresses. 222 trains you to listen. The number also marks the beginning of emotional neutrality, the ability to see your own reactions without becoming consumed by them. Neutrality is not numbness, it is clarity. It is the capacity to witness your fear without obeying it, to observe your desire without being controlled by it. It is the space between trigger and response where self-awareness is born. When you develop this neutrality, your emotional body stops swinging wildly between extremes. It finds a center, and as this center strengthens, the universe mirrors it through repeated appearances of 222. The number becomes the pulse of your balance, a reflection of the steadiness growing beneath the surface. 222 is especially potent during relational crossroads. You may be evaluating whether to stay, leave, repair, or release. You may be reconnecting with someone in a healthier way, or realizing a connection only worked when you abandoned your truth. You may be stepping into a new relationship dynamic, not necessarily romantic, but more mindful, more honest, more aligned. 222 does not tell you which direction to choose. It mirrors the energy behind your choices. If your actions are grounded in fear, the number reveals this by appearing at moments of hesitation. If your actions are grounded in truth, the number stabilizes you, appearing when you step toward what aligns rather than what comforts. 222 is a barometer, not a roadmap. The harmony of 222 extends beyond relationships into every domain of your life. You begin making decisions not based on urgency or pressure, but on resonance. You stop chasing outcomes, you stop forcing timing. You stop trying to mold your life into shapes that drain you. You begin to feel the natural rhythm of your path. You notice that the things meant for you feel spacious, not strained. You understand that harmony is not manufactured. It emerges when you stop fighting your own energy. 222 reflects this surrender through its quiet repetition. It is the number of flow, not force. As your emotional body continues to regulate itself, you may notice certain relationships drifting, not because of conflict, but because resonance no longer holds. 222 appears to soften these transitions. It reminds you that releasing what doesn't resonate is not loss, it is alignment. Harmony requires space. When something leaves, it is because your field is making room for connections that match your rising coherence. 222 guides you through these transitions with gentleness, letting you know that what remains after clarity is always true. In the higher octave of its meaning, 222 teaches you the architecture of energetic partnership, not just with people but with life itself. Partnership is not merging, it is dancing. It is moving in rhythm with what feels true rather than gripping what feels familiar. It is allowing yourself to be seen without collapsing. It is holding your boundaries without closing your heart. It is receiving without fear and giving without depletion. 222 is the number that appears when this dance begins. It reflects the moment your relationship with the universe becomes reciprocal rather than one-sided. The number also serves as a mirror for your creative processes. When your ideas, emotions, and intuition fall into alignment, your creativity flows without force. You begin expressing yourself with clarity, not performance. You communicate more authentically. You feel more grounded in your voice. 222 appears when your inner expression and outer expression begin to harmonize. When what you feel, what you say, and what you do finally match. Eventually, as with all synchronicities, you reach a point where 222's appearance becomes so integrated that it no longer shocks or surprises you. This is not because its meaning has weakened. It is because its meaning has become part of your baseline awareness. Harmony is no longer something you are learning. It is something you are embodying. The universe does not need to show it to you as often because your field already holds it. Yet 222 never disappears completely. It lingers at the edges of your experience, appearing when you drift out of balance, when you overextend or disconnect from yourself, when you forget your emotional center, not as warning, never as warning, but as invitation. Return to your rhythm, return to your truth, return to your harmony. And with one breath you do. 222 is not the promise of external partnership. It is the mastery of internal partnership. It is the moment you learn to walk with yourself in a way that allows the world to walk with you. That is dual harmony fully awakened.